So you guys have a new album coming out very soon, but before we talk about that, I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about how songs come together for you guys and how they usually start.
It really depends. Sometimes it happens in the room when we're just jamming during practice. Most of the time, it's Mike and I like riffing back and forth with each other. I'll come up with a basic idea and have like a couple riffs, and then we'll both either like input it a little bit on Guitar Pro and kind of mess with like a structure that way, or we'll just like play together in a room and sort of like work off of what each other has, and then we'll bring it into the room with Adam. Yeah, it really depends.
Mm-hmm. And at what point do Keenan and Adam start giving feedback? Do you guys already have like a basic structure?
So that tends to vary. It kind of depends on, I guess, what point in the process, like Ria and I feel like we need a little bit of help to finish an idea. Sometimes, and a lot of it is just us in a room messing around with ideas kind of almost spontaneously, and then Adam will jump immediately kind of on a drum idea. Keenan tends to come in almost always towards the end, but Adam's pretty involved in the writing process too. You know, he'll throw over drum feels and different beats over certain riffs that kind of help, I guess, like contextualize what might come next if we're in the middle of writing. But a lot of times too, there's been plenty of songs where Ria and I basically work it out completely on our own, come up with a rough structure, and then Adam puts his flair on it and then kind of helps flesh it out a little bit more. So, I mean, honestly, it really varies song to song, whether we're kind of hitting a roadblock or if we're able to kind of bring it out into creative fruition kind of on our own.
It sounds like the riff is the genesis of everything. Like you guys are really a riff band.
Yeah, that and farting in someone's general direction, either pissing them off or making them really like just like nauseous, and there's like, oh god, that tastes and smells like a riff, and then it just kind of comes out.
But yes, we are very riff based.
Well, as far as that goes, Mark, a lot of the songs, well, maybe just the song titles, seem to be inspired by classic horror and gore movies.
Oh, yeah.
Is that where a lot of your inspiration comes from?
Yes. Each and every one of us in the band are gore hounds. We love our cheesy B-movie, Cronenberg, H.P. Lovecraftian horror stuff. Yeah. Romero stuff, just Carpenter, Savini, all the Raimi, all the good gore fellows. Peter Jackson, let's go.
Production.
Yeah, so a lot of that definitely like floods my head when I'm writing or trying to get a theme across when I'm hitting up a commission or when I'm commissioning artwork. But yeah, it's just a bunch of gory fun. Also, my dumb antics too. I kind of wrap that in there with tongue in cheek, fart joke stuff.
So it seems like a good time to bring up the new album, which is called The Deader the Better. And it will be your second full length, which will be coming out on May 13th through Creator Destructor Records. When did you guys actually start working on this?
We started working on these songs about like 2018. Yeah. I remember that's when we had like one of the first songs that we were definitely working on for sure. Yeah, and it took kind of a while because we were in the process of starting writing, and then I think it was like 2018 and 19 we were playing tons and tons of shows that were like awesome opportunities, but it took a little bit away from our writing just because we're planning and working and trying to accommodate for these shows. We're like, we need to really buckle down and get the shit done.
Yeah, we hit Europe in the summer of 2019 and played our Scene Extreme. And, that we just practiced our asses off before that. Even while practicing, we were playing shows. So it's like we were just playing show after show after show. And finally, when
fall and winter of 2019 came down, we were like, fuck this. Let's just focus on the album and book some time. And that's when
we booked time with Harv at his studio for January 2020.
And we'll speak more about working with Matt Harvey. We spoke a little bit about Carcass as an inspiration, but also Carcass as a band that really changed from album to album, and at least from the outside seemed like a band that wasn't afraid of taking chances with their music. When you were going into this album, did you have any ambitions to do something different from your previous album? or to move in new directions?
I mean, I think, at least speaking for myself, and I think the others would agree, that we were, I guess, just interested in expanding more on, in terms of, I think, really song structure and kind of leaning into a little bit more of those harmonies. And I think the ultimate result was actually kind of more of like a mid-tempo, pretty heavy record, rather than just being full blistering speed. Although we do definitely have those tracks in the coming record, but I think our focus was just really getting the most out of these riffs as we can, and assembling the song structures in such a way that would make them interesting and a little bit more thought out, rather than just kind of, straight A B kind of riffing and writing.
So if the first album was symphonies, would this be your necroticism?
I feel like that's fair.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Totally.
So I don't know if we have time to go into all the songs in depth, but I did want to mention the first song, Chopping Mall, just because that was a movie that I only found out about fairly recently because of another band that I interviewed. I'm assuming Slaughter Day at the Chopping Mall is directly influenced or direct nod to the classic 80s movie.
Actually, it's like it
Yes and no.
yes and no, because I think kind of only more recently, I guess since quarantine, Mike and I watched that for the first time. It's like about like
Robots, right?
robots and like it's about like
Killer security robots
Exactly.
that
I think they go haywire, right?
start killing teenagers in a shopping mall.
exactly.
Fantastic.
I think Marky had come up with the title.
I came up with the title because I was with my partner and we were in the mall and I was like waiting outside of the changing room while they're like, trying on stuff, and I was like, it was literally a Saturday at the shopping mall, and for whatever cheesy reason, Slaughter Day at that shopping mall went through my head. I was like, that sounds like a cool band or a cool title.
And so we were like, in the process of making all the songs and stuff, I was like, oh, that's like a cool song title. I'm going to name it that. And no one ever said like, oh, no, you shouldn't. It sounds way too cheesy. I was like, oh, cool. It's going to stick. So it doesn't have to do with the movie.
I think I'm pretty sure we heard about the movie after we came up with the title.
Yeah.
And then we watched it and we were like, okay, this is awesome. Yeah.
There's just so many B movies, you can't keep up with them.
Yeah, if you have a ton, it's a B movie.
Yeah, there's a
B horror movies from the late 80s.
So no killer robots in your song?
No.
Sadly, no.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry to disappoint. Next time.
Well, since we're talking about that movie, I should shout out Mike from VHS, who VHS are a horror-themed death thrash grind band who do a lot of B-movie, and he actually recommended the movie not that long ago. I'd never heard of it, even though I guess it's a little bit of a cult classic. Mm-hmm. But moving on, let's talk about some of the guys that you have guesting on the album and making contributions.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a total of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guests. We have Matt Harvey doing guest vocals on I Skin You. Tom Draper on guitars doing a sick solo on The Casket Crawling Catastrophe. And then we have, it's the closing track to the album. And then we have Leon doing guest solo and vocals on Axe Scratcher. Terrible pun. We have both Sean and Ross from Impaled doing vocal guest stuff on the title track, The Deader the Better. I think that's all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about your guests. At least 3 of them were or are members of Exhumed, or part of that revolving lineup that Exhumed has. And you guys mentioned that you're all living around the same area, but beyond the previous relationship that you guys had with them and your relationship to them through the scene, was there any other reasons that you guys wanted them on this album?
I mean, they have distinct and awesome vocals. and solos. So, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer for us. Also, it's kind of means a lot to each and every one of us in the band that they even like said yes. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, I'm going to ask him, and if they say no, I'm not going to be hurt because, hey, at least I asked.
Yeah, I think it's like important to mention that like these dudes have been extremely supportive of us, and they've honestly been like big brothers, which is kind of funny because I mean obviously we're pretty stylistically similar, so I think they'd be mad at us. But I think they're I don't know, they've been nothing but supportive and stoked. So it's been I don't know, it kind of feels like they're having their endorsement or support is really encouraging because obviously our music is like directly influenced by a lot of what they've done.
Which I'd like to add really quick when we were recording with Matt in the studio and we have a song, Gurgitor, the opening riff, Harv pointed out, he's like, oh yeah, that's Trokar riff. That's Leon's riff. You guys stole Leon's riff. Where it's like, we'll take it up with Leon.
I mean, I love Matt's bands, and I really enjoyed speaking to Matt. He's a great guy, but he's the last person who should be talking about ripping off another band.
Right? Am I right? But he was just, it's cool because like he's so
not like offended. Like he points out his own verses. Oh yeah, this is a Sodom riff. Oh yeah, this is another Sodom riff. Oh yeah, this is a Sodom riff. And it's like, yeah, cool. Like he's totally like self-aware. Yeah, never catch yourself inside of a car with the windows rolled up after he's eaten Del Taco. Heads up.
So, speaking of Matt and being in a closed space with Matt, I think you mentioned this was actually recorded in the studio?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, had you guys worked there before?
No. So the thing is, like, when we were in the talks of recording the album and we would run into Matt at shows, he kind of bugged us and was like, hey, so when are you looking to record? And we told him the kind of window that we were looking at. He's like, hey, so, like, we have, like, our studio in San Luis Obispo. He was saying, like, we pretty much have recorded, like, the last Exhumed album there, and we kind of want to experiment recording other bands to see how that goes. Him and Alejandro Cordero. And he was like, hey, how about you guys be like kind of the first guinea pig to sort of try recording there and see how that goes? And we're like, oh, fuck yeah, of course. No, we want to work with you. So yeah, that just kind of worked out. And yeah.
And had you guys worked with Alejandro before?
No, this was our first time recording with him, but we did known him from like shows in the local scene. And
yeah, we ended up working with Alejandro again at the same studio a few months later to record our EP, and I think we should probably note this to avoid confusion. Our Gourmet EP, which was already released a few years ago, was actually recorded after this record that is coming out now. We've been sitting on it basically since COVID because we wanted to make sure we could play shows and tour on it and support it, and just kind of release something. So it's a little weird. It's released kind of chronologically out of order, but this record was the first time we went to their studio, Dark Corner Studios, and worked with